This episode is because Opie paid us money to make it.
It is Monday night, and you know what that means. It must be time for another edition of the Stardom Fan Podcast. I'm Mark.
I'm Judo.
And today we have, yet again, we've done this at least once, but a Patreon-supported episode. Thank you to the generosity and support of, thanks to Opie Lover, Opie Lover, if you will. The request was an episode on Giulia, and I am more than happy to oblige. Is there anything you'd like to say to the Opie before we get on here, or anything you want to talk about? And I guess we'll, as we do this, we're getting better. We did a Jungle Kiona one last month, and I think it was a little bit tougher in the live stream, but then once it was edited to perfection, it was one hell of a 40-minute show. So
everything you could have possibly wanted to know about her was there.
Yeah, definitely happened. Well, we'll start off by basically Giulia. We're going to cover everything from her beginning, her humble beginnings in, I guess, technically London, to Ice Ribbon, and then all the way to becoming the NXT World Champion. But first, you want to start with her early years, early life, maybe if you have anything on her pre-wrestling, and then maybe we'll go right into what she did in Ice Ribbon. Opie is in the house. Oh, hey, buddy. You're like a favorite right now.
Well, unfortunately, Giulia was born in London, England. No one should be born there. And she had a Japanese mother and an Italian father, so that's pretty complicated. So she's my favorite Britalian. And then the first thing I actually learned about her was just her talking about going to school in Japan. Because I know she was born in London and then they kind of just moved, but she doesn't even remember it. She was like a baby. And they moved to Japan, and the first thing I found out about her was an interview where she was talking about going to school.
Yeah, and what I found interesting, which is, I texted you as I was researching. It was like, man, if I keep this up, I'm gonna. Spoiler alert! I never really liked Giulia all that much, sort of. But I was like, the more I'm reading about her beginnings, I'm like, oh man, I'm starting to feel bad. I'm starting to come around, because basically it sounded like she was bullied a little bit. I don't know, being a blonde girl in Japan, did that open up to a little bit of bullying?
Well, I would like a Stardom fan icon to donate, and let's do an episode about Giulia's mom, because she seems pretty interesting. I found some quotes somewhere about her mother was a former dancer with blonde hair, tan skin, belly button piercing, nose piercings, platform shoes, short shorts, the type of mom that would go to a parent-teacher conference with her cleavage out, and then anyone who stared at her, she would just like blow kisses to. That's a pretty cool mom.
Oh. Well, that's where you get it from, I guess, huh?
And her dad, well, you know, so like, and this might that's her dad. She said would always show up and drop her off at school with sunglasses on and his convertible, smoking and blasting hip hop from the speakers. And then he would just drive and park in like places he wasn't supposed to. And then everyone in school would just stare at her and be like, "Oh, here they come." And she's like, "Man, that was embarrassing."
They eventually, what I found interesting, I don't have a ton on her re-wrestling or growing up, but I even put it out in the Discord because I wanted the name of the restaurant. But apparently, it almost seems like, of course you would. So she grew up in Chiba, which I instantly was like, oh,
it's the greatest city
Chiba
in the world.
Girl. Yeah, I didn't even know that. The literal home place of the world famous Lady C. I mean, of course you're gonna get like proper wrestling training growing up there. But apparently, they had an Italian restaurant, which Giulia. Now here's where it gets a little goofy. Apparently, they have an Italian restaurant. The dad was Italian, right?
Yeah.
So they split at some point. I think around the age that she was like 18 or 17 or something like that. They split. Dude just gets the fuck out of there. They still have the restaurant, so like Giulia's just like running the restaurant with her mom, becomes a manager, and then I don't know. Eventually in her 20s.
The thing I read was like, yeah,
I think I'd rather get punched in the face.
The dad, the dad split. They're running his like shitty Italian restaurant, and the mom and her like, we hate this, and they just like abandon the restaurant because they're like, this isn't even our restaurant; it's his restaurant. Fuck him. So it's like Giulia goes to America, and. Well, I'm going to go back a little bit, but she goes in a second, but she goes to America, to like Miami for whatever reason. And I guess she saw like they were shooting a movie or something, and there was like monster I don't know, they're doing like special effects. And she's like, oh, that's pretty cool. So she wanted to like be like a beauty technician and learn all about makeup, which I don't know. I did not picture her as someone who's like, oh, yeah, I care all about my makeup. The girl who shaves her head and has dreadlocks and dresses like a pirate.
Well, she definitely has show business in her, that's for sure. And this might I don't even know. I only saw this once. Was apparently after the restaurant, she worked in some kind of cabaret.
Well, I'm gonna go back because I found something about when she was a kid, like her whole childhood being like half Japanese. She just got bullied and bullied and bullied. And she was like a really shy kid and just got bullied. And then eventually she saw, like, she was just like taking it to like the 5th grade. And then she saw her little brother getting bullied. And maybe it's like, that's pretty base. Or it's like, okay, if I can take it if they're bullying me, but she saw someone bullying her little brother. So she said that she just went over and just started beating the shit out of some like punk 5th grade girl who was bullying her little brother. And then she said, ever since that day, she's like, you know what? I'm just gonna like give it back to them if they're gonna bully me. She's like, a flip got switched. What was the quote here? She goes, from then on, if someone hit me, I would hit them back. If someone said something to me, I would absolutely talk back. I just got more cocky. Like, all right, who wants to try me? I was still scared, but the most important thing was I didn't want to lose anymore. Which, man, that sounds like a pro wrestler right there.
Yeah, and that's where, like, you can almost see it growing up, too. It's like, right from the start, like, just watching Giulia, it's like, she just exudes, like, something, right? Where it's just like, it's almost like too over the top, an overcompensation. And I think it comes from sort of having it a little bit rough, right? Like, it almost sort of feels like it. That's where I messaged you, and I'm like, man, I'm going to start liking this girl the more I read, because, yeah, I mean, talk about, like, I don't know, nothing to something? I mean, self-made.
I mean, it's kind of depressing. I mean, she seems to like have just taken it pretty well about her bullying. I'm not going to go into like, she talks a lot about the stuff they would do. Like, some of it she would like laugh it off. Like, they would just take my notes and just like shred them up. And she goes, it's actually impressive how much they would like shred my notes. And she's like laughing about like, they're bullying me, but it's like, I'm a little impressed by like how good they're doing it. But she's a badass where it's like, she said it was basically like the whole school versus her. Like everyone was just like was bullying her, and she made it worse for herself because like she just decided, you know what, fuck you. You're gonna try to like mess with me. I'm gonna mess with you back. So that didn't help. Everyone didn't like her. And like when someone would, I don't know, do whatever stupid prank or like steal her books or whatever, like they would always do it behind her back and like laugh about it. But she would like make sure she knew like, oh, it was you, and then go up to your locker and like start, you know, steal shit from your locker so you knew that it was her. She's like, I'm not going to do this like, shit behind your back.
Like, that is so, like, all that you just said is, like, so, it's pretty badass. It's to the point where that really happened, or she watched a whole lot of Saved by the Bell and then put that in an interview.
Oh,
she's the Zach Morris.
Yeah, she could be like Hulk Hogan. She could just be making it all up. I mean, we just like to believe that everything in wrestling is real, but it's also probably safe to assume that everything a wrestler says is also a lie.
All right, well, with that, All right, so with all that being said, here's like I suppose the $1,000,000 question. All right, so she's growing up, she's getting bullied. There's a point where when you look like Giulia and you're the only one in the city that looks like that,
Yeah.
the girls are still bullying you, but the boys aren't.
No, they said the boys were worse.
Sooner or later, you got to become a fan favorite. To,
She said,
like,
well,
hey,
I mean, I know you definitely have.
Not start turning heads as once you get up to a certain.
Well, you like Thekla and Saya Kamatani, so maybe for you that's great. But she said that
the face is a type.
She said that the boys like were like almost worse than the girls probably.
Oh well, you know what? They were afraid of her. I mean, she probably was also.
But you know what?
40 centimeters taller.
But I mean, I don't know what ages like the boys were messing with her, but that like if it's a young enough age, that just means they all liked her.
Yeah. Then after that, they were afraid of her.
And then after that, they were afraid that they liked her.
All that information you got. Were you able to find the name of the damn restaurant?
No.
Everything I read. I even put it up on the Stardom fan Discord. I was like, we need some detective work here. And even the super producer Ropolos couldn't apparently figure this out. And StardomFan.com for the Discord. And it was funny. It was like, it closed in 2014. The stuff I was reading was like, it was even featured on television. So it must have had a commercial or something. But nowhere did it say the damn name of this place. I wanted some pictures. I wanted something. I wanted a picture. I wanted, like back when we did the Utami one, you got the family photo and you're like, all right, I think that's Utami. But her other 5 sisters also look like her, so I'm not completely sure. Like, I wanted to do that with Giulia.
Oh, yeah.
Trying to find her in the restaurant.
I definitely watched Utami cracking eggs and prepping chicken for like 20 minutes. And then 20 minutes into the video, Tommy walks in. I was like, huh? Who have I been watching? Oh, one of her 3 sisters.
Isn't that when you actually decided that like moving to Japan is a great idea? Because if you can't have the real thing, there is a really high percentage that you're going to end up with one Haya Shishida by the time it's over.
Yeah.
Anything else on that stuff, or did you want to? Getting Ice Ribbon, her.
Well, how she got into wrestling is pretty funny. It's like, so she's taking all these classes because she wants to be like into makeup and stuff, and that's expensive. So she's like finding jobs to like pay for it, and she ends up getting a job as like a hostess, which is like for sad men to rent a girlfriend, basically. That's
what I was saying earlier before we rewound. A hostess, and then like it was only I had to use Google Translate, so maybe it wasn't quite right, but it said it was like at a cabaret.
Yeah.
Now I know there's like normal ones, but if I learned anything from Yakuza, the video game.
Yeah, I'd much rather know what the name of the cabaret than the restaurant. Be a way better trip.
I didn't see the menu, but I guess you're right. I know I got stuck on the restaurant. I'm like,
But she's got this one guy who's like always shows up to like request her, and then he starts like paying to just take her to wrestling shows. And she's like, I don't really like this, but she just keeps doing it anyway. She's like, I need money. He's paying me, basically. And then eventually she just got into like actually liking it because this guy kept like paying to take her to shows.
I think I saw.
So he should get when she wins like the women's title at like a WrestleMania or something like that. Dude needs to get like a front row seat comped.
So at this cabaret or hostess club or anything like that, apparently, not only was she financing her training as a stylist, which turned into the wrestling, but she was personally invited by. Which ended up being one of her trainers, I believe, Tsukasa Fujimoto of Ice Ribbon, because they knew each other, because they both ended up working at that said cabaret club.
Oh wait, is that the girl who just fought Mayu and she like hurt her hand or something for the New Japan title?
Oh, I don't know.
What did you say her name was?
Oh no, it wasn't one of her trainers. It must have been a wrestler, or maybe an owner. I could click on her real quick. Tsukasa Fujimoto. She met in said to the Cabaret Club and was in Ice Ribbon.
Okay.
She is an older wrestler. She's 41 years old right now. Not 56 kilograms, but 48.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's the same one. Yes. I'm a fan of her work.
Do you want to fast forward to 2017 when she joins Ice Ribbon?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really get anything on like why she decided like, nah, I'm just gonna be a pro wrestler, other than she just liked it.
There's a big difference between. It was funny when between like Utami's like research and like the first one we ever did was easy. The subject
I
matter
just
was
knew everything.
It was Utami.
Yeah.
And like two, I mean her entire life
is documented. Yeah.
Like, she literally had a camera in her face since the day she was born. So yeah, that's why a lot of the Jungle Kyoto stuff and now the Giulia stuff. There's a decent amount of Giulia, especially since you got some really nice interviews. But yeah, there ends up being holes. So she was running a restaurant. She was funding her way through being a stylist, and then she's like, "All right, well, I want to punch people in the face now." Maybe she missed it from her high school years.
But she just goes to Ice Ribbon and just basically just becomes their top star, which I don't know a lot about Ice Ribbon at the time. It doesn't seem very difficult. But she just like wins basically all their belts as like their top star. Did you have anything on that?
Yeah, well, I have her 2017. She joins Ice Ribbon, her debut match. She teams with Takako Inoue in a losing effort. Maybe that was her only loss. It was a modest start, but her potential was clear.
Oh, I do. That match.
I was going to say, basically, it looked like she had, unlike her Stardom career, she had sort of like the normal first year of a learning wrestler. She lost a lot her first year, but by 2018, I mean, that's when she's got the International Tag Championship. She wins with Tequila Saya, and their team was called
Tequila Saya.
I was assuming it was the same. That was the same Saya too. But what actually I thought was interesting was that she won that belt on March 31st, 2019, from Risa Serra and a partner, Maya Yukii, and then loses the belt to said team. So it sort of goes back to when they had that Providence feud. I'm like, oh man, she did know Risa Serra from the start, huh?
Yeah. And then Maya Yukii, Giulia hates her. But I don't
for real?
I don't know if anything Giulia says is for real.
Of course, for real, right?
I'll just assume it's real. But I find it funny because she said like she will not go back and watch her rookie year because she's like, I was a terrible wrestler. I would never, don't watch my rookie year. Nobody go back and watch it. I've never watched it. But that's like her 2017, right? And then 2018, she just takes off and starts winning all the belts. She just like picks up wrestling like a savant, basically. And then the next thing I found was like the controversy, which I don't know. I don't know why it got so much controversy. Is like when she left Ice Ribbon, she just decided, yeah, I have a contract with Ice Ribbon, but Stardom's going to pay me a bunch of money, so I'm going to go do that.
I think it was. See, now, and this is where it gets interesting, like, to me, too, because at this point, this is 2019, and I'm all in.
Oh, by the way, you can go to Ice Ribbon's YouTube channel. There's a lot of good Giulia matches there.
Oh,
mainly
cool.
just her.
To watch some of that young stuff.
Mainly just her wrestling Sayori, so that's good.
Oh, really?
I think so.
That's awesome.
It's either that or act wrestle, maybe both. Sayori wrestled everywhere before she became like full-time Stardom.
I was gonna say, in 2019, this is when we were listening to Wrestling Observer like all the time, and I was really loving that Jim Valley show.
Yeah.
And this is around the same time. I wasn't into Stardom yet. Like, I sort of knew it existed because I watched Ring of Honor, and Mayu Iwatani was there, and I'm, wow, this is really cool. I got to find a way to watch this. And at that time, it was like, I don't know if there was a way to watch it. I don't know how people did. Like, I remember looking it up and be like, I don't know. It says it costs $999 for me to watch this. I guess I can't figure it out. That was before I knew what a yen was, apparently.
Costs you a
but I
dollar.
remember yeah, but I remember it was the funniest thing, because it's like my favorite Giulia anecdote is what you were saying there's a little bit of a controversy is basically, I guess it was the whole stepping stone thing, right? I guess he's like, well, we're just going to use Ice Ribbon, and then I got a name for myself, and boom, I'm on the bigger and better things. But what I remember being funny was Jim Bailey was doing episodes and episodes. He's talking about this Giulia, and he's like, I don't understand the hate. She's going to be great. She's going to be the next star. She's being pushed to be the next star. This and the other thing, and to the point where I'm like, now this is where, like, I think it gets funny, because I'm like, I'm at work. I'm like, I gotta start Googling this person. So I'm like, Giulia, J-U. I'm like, I can't find this girl anywhere because I don't know how to spell Giulia. Eventually, the way I figured it out is I did like the voice to text, and I just like did the thing where it was like Giulia Stardom Wrestling, and then eventually,
yeah, because
found it for me. I'm like, it's spelled with a G. Interesting.
Well, and
the first thing I did, of course, was look up images. I'm like, oh, now I know what they're all talking about. Looks like a star.
I mean, that's just how it's pronounced. That's just how it's spelled in Italy. But, she totally looks Italian. That's what I find funny about her being bullied. It's like, she looks, to me, Japanese. I don't see the Italian. She looks Japanese to me. I mean, she's tan, but she just looks like a tan Japanese girl. But she's getting bullied because she's like, oh, you're Italian? I'm like, she looks more Japanese than probably 90% of the girls bullying her.
I suppose it depends. It's funny. I sort of thought the same thing, but maybe it depends your context. Because the first time I ever showed Giulia to my brother, and because I also knew, obviously, because of her promo, she speaks fluent Japanese. So I'm just like, wow, this is a Japanese girl with a weird look. He's watching the match, and he just looks at me. He's like, there's no way she's Japanese. I'm like, what?
Huh, that's funny.
What do you mean? Yeah.
To me, she looks Japanese.
Yeah, that's when it blew my mind. He looks it up. He's like, she's from England. I'm like, what? That doesn't make any sense.
That doesn't count. Also, it's funny when you look up a wrestler and you see like, oh, you mean that they have a stage name? Like that always blows my mind. I don't know why it does. Like her name is just like Emmy, which is pretty cute. Emmy, and then I found out like all her moves are called like Glorious something, Glorious Buster, Glorious Driver, because that's her middle name. Her name is just Gloria, which I didn't know that. Cool. I was like, why does she call everything like Glorious something? Like, oh, she just named her moves after herself. That's pretty cool.
It goes to, it's funny too. This is a good spot to like Cage Match has like, because it's like the database of everything, has like all her nicknames she's ever gone by. The Gladiator of Glorias. This is actually the one that doesn't seem to fit, but is pretty funny. Second generation Hot Topic woman.
Second. Okay. Oh, that's Saya.
Apparently, she's the third generation now.
Third generation Hot
Indomitable
Topic.
Italian woman. Glorious warrior.
Is that like Suri? Like Suri is the undominable, you can't dom Suri. She's the undominable girlfriend.
When do you think she went by the moniker Dark Dormitory Manager?
Geez, that sounds like one of her jobs she was doing before she was in wrestling.
Dangerous Queen, and then finally settling on Beautiful Madness, which is probably the one that's going to stick. Juno in 2019, she makes the surprising move by leaving Ice Ribbon to join World Wonder Ring Stardom.
Yeah, she kind of...
I was going to say, this is where she just like, I mean, is she amazing, or can my girl Hazuki never win a match? December 8th, she comes in. She's like, boom, I'm here. I'm here, world, love me, and beats Hazuki. First match out.
I don't think Hazuki's any good. It's what we learned doing these episodes. Every episode is like, and then Utami comes in, and in her third match, she beats Hazuki. And then Jungle Kiona, she like has this title that she won from Hazuki. It's like everyone it's like a step. You got to get through Hazuki or maybe she is good. Maybe she's like, I don't know, maybe like a Roddy Piper
Not the
type.
final boss, but the second final boss.
Yeah, like you got to get, it's like old WWF. You had to get past Roddy Piper if you wanted a shot at the champion.
That makes sense. Like, Mr. Perfect never had the main championship. You're right. When you're right, you're right. Hazuki's Mr. Perfect.
We'll get into like her stuff, like her into Stardom, obviously, but just I'm not a psychologist, but it seems pretty obvious. Like when you like read her interviews about being bullied, and then like I found this little quote where she said like this is when she was still in Stardom, where she's like, "What's the one thing you want to win most in wrestling?" Like people would assume like a big to like the Cinderella tournament, or I want to win this championship, and she said that she wants to win the Tokyo Sports MVP award. And it's an award that no female wrestler has ever won. And she's like, years down, when people win this award, I want them to say, wow, this is a big deal because Giulia won this award. So it's like, I think it just goes to like her whole mindset of just, she probably just like felt like really shy and weak and small from being bullied. And like I said, like her brother got bullied and she beat that chick's ass, and like a flip switch where she's like, I just want the attention and I want to be the best, and like no one's gonna tell me I'm second best. So she's like, I'm gonna be a wrestler, and it's like, oh, Stardom wants me, fuck yeah. And then she's like, oh wait, if I go to Marigold, I get to say that I'm like helped founded this company, and then oh shit, I can go to the big times in WWE and be the champion. It's like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that definitely keeps growing. Since then, hasn't girls won the Tokyo thing? Didn't like Tommy or someone win it?
I don't think so.
I feel like we talked about it. I don't know if I don't know.
I just
the big award, but
maybe a runner-up.
Definitely had Tokyo Sports Awards. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, I don't think the Tokyo Sports Award. That was like a big thing of they had like a Fighting Spirit Award, like Stardom Fan Award show. And Mayu came in like second place, like runner up for like that award, and she's like, I'm gonna beat your ass next year. I can't think of the guy who won. It's the guy from Noah who's like the new Okada. Kaido something.
Oh. Kaido Kiyomiya.
Yeah. Yeah, so she comes into Stardom. Instant star somehow, because she wasn't like, she was like the top star in Ice Ribbon, but you know, being the top star in Ice Ribbon is, no offense to Ice Ribbon, it's like not that huge of a deal. Like they're not like,
is it possible it's
they're not,
like
they weren't as big a promotion.
Yeah, but you think it's like one of those worst kept secret things? Like I don't know, was it as big as Cody going from somewhere low, and then all of a sudden we're like, oh my god, he's here? Do you think that's what it was like? She's like, oh my god, she's here, and in front of like the 80 people in the gymnasium, they just blew the lid off the place.
Now that we're saying this, I wish I would, like, I just remembered something. Like I don't know, maybe I'll find it, you could put it in post like if I find the actual quote. But I think they just have totally rode with like the controversy where it's like, especially in Japan, you're supposed to be loyal, you're not supposed to just leave. And she's basically just like, she didn't tell the company she's leaving Ice Ribbon. She sends a tweet when she's already signed her Stardom contract. That's how the Ice Ribbon finds out, like, hey, our top star is gone and signed, even though they're under contract. But I think they just kind of rode with that controversy because it got a bunch of news stories, and now all of a sudden it's like, what's the thing? It's like,
Ice Ribbon is.
There's no such thing as bad publicity. Like, she just became popular. Because she came into Stardom and she did a promo like, I'm not going to be the champion like you guys have had or want or think a champion should be. I'm going to take your belt whether you like it or not. I'm going to be the top star. But she comes into Stardom, starts up DDM, which is like the best faction I ever made in Stardom.
Yeah, and the founding members being like her, Shuri, and Micah. Like, where'd she find Shuri? Just like beating someone up in an alleyway? She's like, you want to wrestle? Like, that's the only way I can picture that's how that worked.
Yeah, Micah was funny because Micah was like in she's like the original Karate Kid. Like, I think she was in Just Tap Out, and she's like, "Oh, I like you. Join my team."
Yeah, how cool were they? They were cool for a very long time too.
Tell me about. You should tell me about the match that like basically started Stardom Fan, like Tam versus Giulia, hair versus hair match.
That skips some of her stuff, but after Giulia doesn't deserve Tam yet. However, they start DDM, they win the Artist Championship. Giulia wins the 2020 Cinderella. She claims the vacant Wonder of Stardom Championship by defeating Tam Nakano, igniting the rivalry between the two. Is that right? Is that wrong? All I know is that, yeah, whatever. You wanted to know about the hair match. This is the hair match, all right? Like, it was one of the 2021. I start watching Stardom, and I turn it on, and the first thing I see is Lady C come to the ring. I'm like, all right, this is my new favorite thing in the entire world. Yeah, I'm here. All right.
That made you a Stardom fan?
Yeah, they got me in the door. All right, that got us in the door. And then, like, because I just started watching random pay-per-view, right? And sitting there watching this, and so yeah, Giulia, and I've heard of Giulia at this point, so I'm like, oh, cool, I'm already invested. I'm like, wow, this is cool. I can see a Giulia match. And then Tam Nakano comes out, so I see Giulia, who looks like a badass, and then I see Tam Nakano, who looks like a fairy. I don't know how you like it. Just show a picture of her. She looks like a ballerina, right? They kick the shit out of each other, right? It's made this match. Like, every now and again, there is just a match that makes you say, wow. And this is one of those. 20 minutes, I don't know, maybe it went out 40 minutes, who knows, but it was probably around 20. But Giulia ends up winning, and it was crazy cool, because in regular Tam style, so it was a hair versus hair match. Giulia gets in the chair. She's about to get buzzed, right? Tam is crying. So Giulia, being the badass she is, and this is literally the first time I've ever seen anything of her. So I fell in love with her from the beginning.
That's also kind of the
scale down. It was the peak. I peaked.
That's also kind of the start of Tam too, because Giulia just kept beating Tam for that white belt, and just Tam could never win it. And then Giulia was basically like, you don't want it as much as me, so if you want it, you're gonna have to put up like what you care about the most, which is like being cute to the fans. So she's like, if you lose this match, I will shave your head bald. And then even though she's like, I know that can't happen, so Tam wins the match, finally wins the white belt, and she's gonna shave Giulia's head bald, and Tam's the one that's crying. And Giulia's like, why are you crying? Just make it look cool.
That's exactly what she said. She looks up and it translates. She's like, why are you crying? And she's getting, like, Giulia just looking pissed. Tam's crying. Giulia's getting pissed. And that is it's the dude with the razor or whatever starts going, and she's like, make it look cool. And then the next day at Korakuen, she takes her hat off, and we have G.I. Giulia that's buzzed. She actually looks, as they say, embarrassed.
Yeah, she's like, oh,
it worked so fucking good. Like, she looked embarrassed the first time she took her hat off, and I was like, yo, it worked so fucking good.
When you think about it,
that was my favorite Giulia.
She is kind of a rebel too, because like a lot of Joshi wrestling is like, oh, you're gonna probably get the good push if you just like look really hot or really cute or whatever. And she's like, no, I'm gonna dress in army fatigues and shave my head, and I'm gonna be a badass now. And it works.
Awesome, man.
Well, the first thing you told me about Stardom was, I think it was the Cinderella match, and they had the Cinderella single elimination tournament, and they had like over the top rope rules. And this is right after Giulia gets her head shaved. She's facing her tag team partner Micah, and Micah picks her up for a big superplex. And instead of going into the ring, Micah just drops her straight down on her head onto the head post. Giulia goes like tumbling to the outside of the ring, gets eliminated. Probably wasn't supposed to happen. And she's just like gushing blood off of her head, and there's nothing to stop it because, shaved head. And she's all sweaty too from the match, so it looks brutal. And then what's funny is like Julia's the one that just got her head split open on the ring post, and she's the one that looks angry at Micah for screwing the match up.
Maybe that is that Italian temper, right? Yeah. Well, she just like all she does is she points at her head. She's like basically looks like she's saying, "What the fuck? You did this to me."
I got into Stardom for that too because I just thought that like all these Japanese girl wrestling was just like Tokyo Princess Wrestling, where they just like do dance routines in tutus, and you're like, no, that's just Cosmic Angels. Trust me. Like watch this match, and I watch it. I'm like, oh man, Julia's a badass.
Yeah.
But also my first thought
was tough, though.
My first thought was still like Mina versus Lady C. That'll get you in the door.
Well, that gets you Julia. In the door. That G.I. Julia, you stay for the rest, right? 21 was ended up being tough though. She also wins that's the same year she wins the belt with I'll never say the name right. Alto Livello Kabal Ali Kababawawa.
Ali Kababa
with Shuri.
Yeah.
So she ends up winning the belt with Shuri, but just Julia had a year. She ended up with multiple injuries, and I don't know, for months Shuri just like came out with 2 belts, and Julia sort of just disappeared. Which also, at that point, it turns out she ends up jumping New Girls by hiding under that scary Momo mask too by the end of 2021. Remember that?
No, Stardom doesn't want me to remember that.
I know this the stuff, the canon stuff that they don't want, or the stuff that they don't want. Yeah, it must have been an alternate universe.
But she pretty much wins everything. Less than 5 years in Stardom, she's like wins everything. Like 5-star Cinderella tournament, white belt, red belt, tag belt, artist belt, faction leader. What doesn't she do? Probably every single Stardom award you can win at the award shows.
Yeah, pretty much everything. I was gonna say that covers it all. But All-Star Grand Queendom, blah blah blah, beats Shuri, and then they cry for.
It's funny because when
an hour
we take our notes, I write like, oh, they won this match on this date and this person, thinking I'm gonna talk about it, and then we get into talking about like these people and their like careers and stuff, and I'm like, you know what, man, it's just the stories that matter. Like the matches are good, but it's like they don't really matter. Like pro wrestling is all just about like the stories to me.
I agree. That's why I brought up that she was a scary Momo mask, and that's how we found Thekla and Mirai, and then somehow Ami showed up.
Ami was not a Momo mask.
No, I know, but she ended up in DDM somehow, didn't she?
No, I think she was the first God's Eye.
Oh, really? Oh.
DDM did have 18 members at one point.
Hard to keep track of them all, I guess. Yeah, to finish up with Wonder Ring Stardom, yeah, the artist belt twice.
Which is 6
Shuri and Micah with it. Yeah, Thekla and Mai Sakurai. The Wonder Belts, wins it from Tam, loses it to Tam. The Goddess Belts with Shuri, wins it from Himika and Micah, loses to FWC. See, Hazuki gets a win every now and again. I think Hazuki's like one tag team win from like having the most like tag team reigns. With FWC, the World Championship, which he won from Shuri and lost again to Tam Nakano. Tam is all over this career. Is Tam going to show up in NXT and take that belt? Is Tam showing up at the Royal Rumble? She's going to win it and challenge for the NXT belt? Did you hear it here first? For a couple minutes, Giulia was the strong women's
also
champion.
Started this dope. Yes. Is that the purple like Pablo Baba bubblegum belt? The
I
grape
don't know.
flavored
It's
belt.
the belt that I don't even know why they still have beef for them and the men's because they don't have a show anymore. Sort of.
Is that that's the belt that still exists for a show that doesn't exist, for a division that doesn't exist?
Yeah, I think it's sort of the New Japan, like the men's title still too, and a tag team title, I believe. It's basically the traveling indie.
New Japan
American
Strong was
Indie.
it was like the American New Japan show that they got canceled. But it didn't even make sense when they had a show because it's the American New Japan women's belt and they didn't have a women's division. To make that make sense.
No, but Stardom has a men's division.
New Japan is Stardom's men's division. Yeah.
Successful, the Strong Women's Championship belt. She won it from Willow Nightingale and lost it to Stephanie Vakir.
Oh, they're probably going to start.
She had it for a while, but I'm not even sure she defended it. She had it from July 5th, 2023, and lost it on March 10th, 2024. I didn't think she had it that long.
Giulia probably got Stephanie Vakir job in NXT. Because that was, unless you're like a big Mexican wrestling fan, no one was talking about her until she had the match with Giulia. And then all of a sudden, they both end up in NXT.
I didn't even know Vakir was in NXT. Was she one of the world's champions there?
She had something. I have no idea.
Oh, that's cool. Hey, before we go on to Marigold, do you mind if we take a quick break?
I could just talk about Marigold. Why you go?
All right, you do that for me, because in April 2024, Giulia became a key figure in Rossy Ogawa's newly established promotion. And I'll be right back.
And that's basically it. You basically said her whole stint in Marigold right there. Actually, there's a little controversy because the head booker of Stardom, actually the founder of Stardom and the head booker, he sells out to big business. He sells out to Bushi Road, which is like this big conglomerate that buys everything like Disney. I'm probably exaggerating. And they say, okay, we're going to give you a bunch of money. You're not the owner anymore. We are, but you can still keep booking how you want. And then they tell him, actually, it's our company. You're going to book how we want you to book. And then Rossi says, actually, I'm going to take this big stack of cash you gave me and start my own promotion. And he got, what was it supposed to be? I think it was like an anniversary for him, too, for like how many years he was. It was like a big show for him, I believe. And they fired him right after the pay-per-view. Super awkward. No one even came. Because it was a big title change. Micah had just won the world championship, and no one came out to like hand her the belt. No one challenged for the belt because there was like stuff happening backstage where Rossi. I don't know why they couldn't have fired him a different day, but he was supposedly, and not supposedly, he was what's it called? Poaching talent. Like, hey, I'm starting this new company. Like, don't resign with Stardom. Sign with me, my new company, Marigold. And Giulia said, okay, I'll be your world champion. A couple other people, Tommy, Mai Sakurai, Mirai, a couple of other wrestlers. Starts as their own company. And Giulia has this weird thing where she's got this deal with, she signs a deal with WWE and the deal with Marigold. And the deal is she's going to stay in Marigold for so many months before they debut her in WWE. Has her first match on their first show ever. Breaks her wrist. And is pretty much out for her entire whatever they gave her. Maybe they gave her from, I think it was March. They gave her, WWE said, all right, well, we'll give you from March till like August, and then we need you. And I think she came back like a month before like her injury healed. So she only had like a couple matches in Marigold, unfortunately. Not too much to talk about. Again, the big thing with that is just the controversy again of like just jumping ships because she's looking for, I don't know, a new challenge maybe? Unless Rossi guaranteed her a whole bunch of money, I don't doubt she was making more money than she could have made in Stardom. Welcome back.
You can't be done with Marigold already. Didn't she have one match before she had an injury and went to New York?
Yeah, pretty much it. Nothing really to talk about. She had a couple matches. Yeah, the big thing there is just
wasn't she part of like the opening show of that damn company
her wrist.
And they lost?
Yeah, she broke her wrist.
Only a Rossi's company would they open up a show in a brand new company with their biggest stars, arguably in the world, and the stars would lose. I mean, that's why you have the matches, right? You never know who's going to win or lose.
Well, she should have a broken freaking wrist. But Kurt Angle won a gold medal with a broken freaking neck.
Tommy should have been able to win that match with two Giulia's wrists tied behind her back.
So that's basically her short Marigold stint. There's nothing really to talk about there.
Well, somewhere around this time, it's like one of those weird things where, because it got play at least in our world because we're fans of the scene, but during one of the backstage scrums, I believe someone asked Triple H, "What do you know about the Joshi wrestler Giulia?" And he's like, "I don't even know what a Joshi is." And then 2 months later, Giulia gets signed. You know, it's like one of those weird things. Do you think?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I remember that.
Smartened them up, or do you think it was like one of those, WWE wink, wink, nod, nod? Penta's coming next week, but he's not. One of those things.
I think someone asked him, like, what do you think about Joshi wrestling and Giulia? And he's like, what the hell is a Giulia? That's probably when he first looked her up.
Yeah.
I do like what Triple H said, though. He's like, what do you think about Joshi wrestling? He's like, Joshi wrestling? He's like, I didn't even know that was like a term. He's like, it's all just wrestling to me, man. Like, call it whatever you want. It's all the same thing. It's like we're all in the same business.
Did you touch on? I guess the only thing I found was interesting because I didn't watch it, but was it a moment? Giulia's last match in Japan was versus Mai Sakurai in Marigold. I'd assume they were friends. They were in DDM together. They went to Marigold together. That had to be sort of one of those like touching moments, I'm assuming.
Oh, and I think Mai Sakurai was pissed because she did not. I heard there was like a big argument about how that match went. Because of course Giulia said, really? "I'm going." She's like, "I'll lose on my way coming in and win on my way going out." That's the Giulia style. So that's how that went.
Apparently, she did the. Eventually, she must have done one of those interviews like they do after like a football game or something. It's like, "Oh, we're just concentrating on next week." Because I have a quote that says, Mai Sakurai later reflects on the match, expressing gratitude for the opportunity and noting its significance in her own career. Yeah, that sounds like something that either that or it's translated wrong. No, it really reads, "I told her to go fuck herself."
And then the translator's like, tell the American she said that she's very grateful. Oh no, Mai Sakurai hit her with like, good luck with your future endeavors. But it's so weird, man. Now that you say that, like, she loses her first Marigold match when she's the huge star. And then on her way out, she's like, yeah, I'm going to go out with a win against you, Sakurai, at this big Korakuen show. So everyone in Japan will always know I'm better than you.
Yeah, and it's funny, too, because Mai Sakurai, like, I haven't watched her stuff since she left, but she's probably similar. She was like, we loved her in Stardom. She had a gimmick that was great. She was becoming a good wrestler. If anyone could really use that win, it's not Giulia. She's already leaving. She's already getting the money. It's like, that's tough. But you know what? That's why I said. That's why any given Sunday, Mai Sakurai just wasn't good enough to beat her that night.
And any other night. Because she leaves Marigold and debuts on the black and gold brand. NXT. WWE NXT on CW. Because I don't watch a lot of WWE. All I know about her in WWE is that they had to like create a new match type for her to get a. She kept getting title shots against the greatest NXT champion of all time, like the prodigy Roxanne Perez, and then she kept losing.
Yeah,
and then they had to invent
like
a new
her.
match type to give her another title shot. They did like a gauntlet Iron Man match or something like that. And Giulia won. And she looked surprised that she won the match.
Yeah, I'm reading she lost like the first two or something, right? I remember, was it like, did she get a title shot right off the bat? Didn't she do a couple promos? She's like, I'm Giulia, I want that belt. And she like got the title match, because I remember actually skimming through it at least, because I usually like to watch their pay-per-views, but the NXT No Mercy show was Giulia's first match. She goes up against Roxanne Perez, and this was one of those matches where I was just like, just tell me what happened. And then I heard Roxanne Perez won, and I was like, all right, I can watch it.
But after 17 shots at the title, she wins the belt against Roxanne, which is unfair because Roxanne has to keep beating Giulia over and over again, and Giulia just keeps getting title shots. That's not very fair.
Yeah, this is it. At NXT Deadline on December 7th, 2024, Giulia participates in the Women's Iron Survivor Challenge. No, that's a match. The only thing it was missing was a cage, a ladder, and a rope to climb.
Giulia didn't even know.
Iron Survivor Challenge, Hell in the Cell Shark Tank match.
She didn't even know she won the match. Like, the ref held her arm up. She's like, I won? That's pretty much just caught up to modern times, huh?
Yeah, why don't I, in the Discord, I said, hey guys, if you have anything that you wanted to say about Giulia, please let me know. And Opie himself sends me a link. Do you think we can watch it? It's on Reddit. You think we'll get flagged? You probably do it no sound. But it's from so basically around, it looks like it's a younger Giulia, so probably around the ice ribbon time. I don't mean to shock you, but she's in a legit like UFC like cage type fight, like a cage fight, and it was like for a reality show or something like that. But there's a match that Opie sent me, and I tell you, she swings her punches like Bobby Hill saying, "You just stole my purse." It is the wildest thing. Whoever taught her how to punch to get her ready for this match should be ashamed of themselves. And as we start playing this on the live stream, it does get shut down. How do you like that? Apparently watching Giulia get beat up in a cage was just too hot for YouTube. But that's all right, because we still ended up with a great show. I just wanted to come right here and post and say thank you to Opie, the Stardom fan icon who requested this episode with his support. You too can support everything we do and follow everything we do at StardomFan.com. This was a Patreon supported episode, which you can get for supporting us at the icon tier. And we're going to take this quick moment to thank all our Patreon supporters real fast. And we have Chicken and Opie are the Stardom Fan icons. Jake is the World of Stardom Fan Champions. And thank you all for hanging out and listening.